I want to talk today about a movie that came out this last year that addresses recovery from addiction. Maybe many of you saw it. The title of the movie is Flight. But before I talk about the movie, I want to talk a little bit about our program in addiction studies here at Cal Southern. As across all of our psychology programs, under the leadership of Dean Barbara Grimes, our wish is to bring as much of a respect for the humanities as for the natural sciences into our psychology curriculum. Let me say a word about this. In German, there are really two words for science, and it's helpful. In fact, at the beginnings of psychology in the mid-1800s in Germany, both of these terms were used to describe the fledgling science developing of psychology. The first term, Wissenschaften, is the German word for science, but it has a prefix, and two different prefixes, and these kind of direct you towards what kind of perspective are we going to be taking on psychology. The first perspective is Naturwissenschaften, which is the German word for natural sciences. And much or most of psychology in the latter part of the 20th century in the United States and here into the 21st century is focused on Naturwissenschaften, a natural scientific approach. But just as important from the very birth of psychology was a second perspective, and in German this is referred to as Geisteswissenschaften. Geisteswissenschaften in German translates literally as, the word Geist is the word for ghost in German. It's also translated as spirit. For example, if you look in the Bible at terms for the Holy Spirit, it's referred to as Heiliger Geist. It probably translates best as spiritual sciences. Geisteswissenschaften would be spiritual sciences, or maybe just science, the science of psychology from humanities, a humanities-based perspective. All I know is that here at Cal Southern and in our addiction studies program, we want to bring an integrative perspective from as many different angles as possible. And so it's in that vein then that I want to bring in a movie review from time to time. Today we're going to be talking about the 2012 movie Flight. Recently had the opportunity to view this movie not once but twice. I don't think it's an accident that I saw it twice. It's one of the most powerful and inspiring movies I have yet to see that addresses addiction and recovery. In this movie, the actor Denzel Washington plays an airline pilot whose secret life of alcohol and drug abuse finally catches up with him. On the heels of a terrible airline crash, which he not only survives, but in which he performs heroically, we witness the character played by Denzel Washington. We witness this character's rapid erosion as he descends into a vicious spiral of substance abuse. The plot of the movie takes us through his harrowing scrapes with the medical and justice systems. I found it interesting that both the medical establishment as well as the judicial system, that they in many ways enabled his addictive behavior. So it's just to say that this can happen in large impersonal institutions. Enabling of addiction can happen just every bit as much as you would see more closer at hand, for example, in family relationships. Now, the climax of the movie is surely one of the more inspiring examples, I think, in all of film, of integrity against all odds winning out. You'll have to see the movie. I'm not going to tell you how it goes. It's just worth seeing how integrity manifests. But as in real life, it's not to say that integrity or honesty with oneself somehow miraculously or mysteriously does away with the wreckage of one's past. All of this wreckage has been addressed and described well in the 12-step programs. In an earlier video, I talked about tips for transformative education and specifically talked about beginner's mind, how it is that we spiral in our knowledge, that we learn something for the first time and maybe we come back to it 6 months or a year later and we review it, and if we review it with an open mind, what I'm calling beginner's mind, that we stand to learn even more, that we keep approaching material with the assumption that we're adding layer after layer of knowledge or understanding. Well, I have to tell you, it was in my second viewing of this movie, in the spirit of beginner's mind, that I was even more struck by how how the movie and the storyline really serves as a metaphor, I think, for every man and every woman, for the process of addiction and of recovery. So it moves like this. The movie, as I think of it, moves from obvious denial. In fact, to everyone but himself, it's obvious that he's in denial, the character played by Denzel Washington. Moving from denial to increasingly desperate excess and eventually total loss of control. At which point in kicks his arrogance, and Washington plays this kind of arrogance, this willfulness expertly. He wills to sober up. He says he can do it, and is going to do it, only eventually to realize the profound hopelessness at hand. And then finally we watch as his character lets go of all pretense and illusions of being able to somehow fix what's going on inside of himself, at least from the vantage point of the same self that got him into his current straits. I'm quite sure I've never seen a film so powerfully depict the immense paradox that's right at the heart of recovery from addiction. In the language of the 12-step program, it's only when we admit to ourselves and others the nature of our dilemma, that is, the absolute powerlessness in the face of addictions, compulsions, and even self-destruction, it's only then that the addict is given a possible opening into some form of grace or even self-forgiveness. And this path, though certainly a dark night of the soul kind of path, might lead eventually to liberation. And in the movie, we see how this unfolds with the character played by Denzel Washington. It really depicts the depths of transformation that lie within the reach of every addicted individual. I highly recommend it to you. Thank you.